with the world's biggest secrets not to be found in the here and now, but rather in the annals of long ago. Some mysteries have baffled historians, archaeologists, and skeptics for ages, ranging from long-lost towns to bizarre objects that refuse to conform to scientific theory. The most perplexing and old mysteries that have so far eluded explanation are discussed in this video. Do you see them as artifacts from long-vanished cultures, or as hints to something much more magnificent? Just off the coast of Cuba, in the murky depths of the Caribbean. Something that, by first glance, shouldn't be there lies on the West Coast. A gigantic, enigmatic building that does not exist in our day. Silently resting hundreds of meters below the surface like ruins of an ancient city long forgotten are gigantic stone blocks, square, aligned, and immobile, rather than a shipwreck or a coral reef. A raging controversy erupted shortly after the site's discovery in the early 2000s. Is it possible that this could be artifacts from a long-vanished culture that flourished over 10,000 years ago? If confirmed, it would cause a seismic shift, cast doubt on our entire understanding of human history, and pose an unsettling query. I wonder how many more ancient cultures have gone down with the tide, leaving no record of their existence in a place where light can't penetrate. This all started in the early 2000s when Russian-Canadian engineer Paulina Zalitsky and her husband, Paul Weinswag, were granted official authority by the Cuban government to undertake a seafloor survey off the western coast of the island. Finding sunken ships and creating an ocean map were their initial goals. Floor with the help of advanced digital communications ADC's high-resolution sonar technology. But at depths of 600 to 700 meters, they experienced a succession of unusual sonar sounds while collecting data. Massive stone blocks with distinct square, rectangular, and even pyramidal forms were shown in the pictures. As if purposefully built by humans, some of the blocks extended for tens of meters in rows or stacked in layers. Despite the graininess of the photos, unexpectedly, the geometry was more clearly defined than one would anticipate from randomly occurring natural formations. A deep and contentious question was immediately posed by this finding. Might an old metropolis, the remains of a once great civilization, be hidden somewhere in the ocean's depths? Scientists and the media were absolutely amazed by the enormous size and remarkably organized placement of the stone pieces on the ocean floor, in addition to their shapes. There are few blocks. Unusual occurrence in natural geological formations. It extended up to 200 meters in length and had almost flawless right angles. A lot of them looked like stairs or were in the shape of long hallways. Straight across the ocean floor were sections that looked like paved highways in certain places. Thanks to its size and accuracy, many archaeologists are hopeful that they have uncovered the long-lost artifacts of a long-vanished civilization that flourished once upon a time but has since been forgotten or buried. Despite sonar, the estimated age of the site sparked a long-standing disagreement among experts, although the photos themselves were spectacular. Initial calculations by the research team indicate that the region has been underwater since the last ice age ended, some 10,000 years ago, if such a large collection of buildings can now be found more than 700 meters below present-day sea level. Much of the Earth's water was still trapped in enormous glaciers at the poles. Therefore, sea levels were 100 to 120 meters lower globally during that time. Rising world temperatures prompted the sea levels rose dramatically due to the melting of these glaciers, submerging extensive coastal areas, including western Cuba, putting the creation of the stone blocks found beneath the Cuban seafloor before 8000 BC would indicate that they were undoubtedly constructed before the water level rose. The late Paleolithic period, far before any officially acknowledged civilizations in recorded history, must have been home to the culture responsible for these constructions. Around 3100 BCE, ancient Egypt first appeared, and it wasn't until about 5000 BCE that Mesopotamia, often believed to be the birthplace of civilization, started to establish cities. It also calls into doubt the entire linear model of human history, which asserts that cities only started to form after the advent of agriculture, writing, and structured states. This, in turn, raises severe issues regarding the existence of advanced prehistoric societies, a group of people from a distant era when a majority of people are still. Those who subsisted on a diet of hunting and gathering managed to construct enormous structures under the surface of the water, only to disappear without a trace. Obtaining a definitive solution to this question would do more than just change how we perceive the past. It would necessitate starting over with the narrative of human civilization. While many were interested in the finding, many in the mainstream scientific community were quite skeptical. Traditional archaeologists and numerous geologists disagreed that sonar pictures aren't always accurate, particularly when it comes to the ocean floor's dynamic and rough terrain. The square and regular-looking stone blocks they claimed could simply be the result of natural geological fracturing or erosion patterns common in limestone formations, which often create sharp-edged, block-like shapes naturally. Some even drew comparisons to Yunnan in Japan, where similar underwater formations that once appeared pyramid-like were later explained as natural rock formations. Another major obstacle is that no direct survey or physical sampling of the site has been publicly documented. Due to the extreme depth and high cost of such operations, all current theories remain speculative, leaving this mystery suspended in the gray zone between science and legend. Since its discovery, the sunken city off the coast of Cuba has often been compared to Atlantis, the legendary civilization described by Plato as having been swallowed by the sea after a global catastrophe. While there is no direct evidence linking this site to Atlantis, the idea of a highly advanced prehistoric society wiped out by climate change or a great flood continues to stir the imagination. Some theories also associate the area with other mythical lost lands like Mu or Lemura, said to have once existed in the Pacific and Indian Oceans. Although no archaeological proof has ever confirmed these civilizations, the allure of the deep-sea structures of Cuba remains strong precisely because of their enigmatic and unexplained nature. To this day, the mystery of Cuba's submerged structures remains unsolved. But one thing is clear. If these formations are proven to be artificial, this site could rewrite the entire story of human development. It would suggest that civilizations existed far earlier than we've ever believed. And more hauntingly, it would force us to ask how many other civilizations once rose, only to be swept away forever by the ocean and forgotten by time. If a civilization truly existed thousands of years before ancient Egypt, swallowed by the sea and forgotten in darkness, how much of human history do we really know? Are the structures beneath the Cuban seafloor evidence of a lost chapter or just nature's illusion playing tricks on our eyes? What do you think about the possibility of a 10,000-year-old city hidden beneath the ocean? Share your thoughts in the comments. Could this be the greatest unsolved mystery of our time, or just a legend born from sonar illusions? What if everything we know about the invention of electricity is wrong, buried beneath the sands of ancient Mesopotamia? A humble clay jar lay forgotten for over 2 millennia. But when it was unearthed in 1938 near Baghdad, what archaeologists discovered inside would ignite one of the most mind-bending debates in modern history. This wasn't just a pot. It was a device housing a copper tube and an iron rod sealed with bitumen. To the untrained eye, it meant nothing. But to scientists and electrical engineers, it resembled something shockingly familiar, a battery. How could such a complex electrical structure exist 1,800 years before the modern discovery of electricity? Was it a coincidence or proof that ancient people had tapped into a force we thought they never knew? This is the story of the Baghdad Battery, an artifact that defies the timeline of technology and dares us to rethink what ancient civilizations were truly capable of. At first glance, the Baghdad Battery looks unassuming. It's a small clay jar roughly 13 to 15 centimeters tall, with a narrow neck and sealed top. But its internal structure is what makes it so fascinating and controversial. When disassembled, The artifact reveals three key components. A clay vessel. This serves as the outer casing, much like the body of a modern battery. A copper cylinder rolled into a tight tube and sealed at one end with a copper disc. It fits snugly inside the jar. It's held in place using an asphalt-like substance, which also insulates it from the outer jar. An iron rod positioned within the copper tube and held in place using the same insulating material. This iron element is partially corroded, suggesting chemical reactions may have occurred. This configuration closely mirrors the basic structure of a galvanic cell, the earliest form of a battery. In modern terms, it's essentially a primitive electrochemical cell capable under the right conditions of generating an electric current. Experiments conducted in the 20th century confirmed this possibility. When replicas of the Baghdad battery were filled with vinegar, lemon juice, or grape juice liquids that act as mild acids, they produced voltages ranging from 0.5 to 1 V. While that might not sound like much, it's more than enough to power a small device, or perhaps to facilitate electroplating, the process of coating one metal with another using electricity. The Baghdad battery is believed to date back to between 250 BCE and 224 CE during the time of the Parthian Empire, a Persian dynasty that controlled a vast region stretching across modern-day Iran and Iraq. This predates the official discovery of electricity by over 1,800 years. Imagine the implications. If this object was intentionally designed to generate electricity, it would mean that ancient civilizations had discovered one of the most foundational principles of modern technology long before Benjamin Franklin flew his kite or Alejandro Var created the first true battery. This is where the mystery deepens. What would ancient people do with a low-voltage power source? Three main theories have emerged over the decades. Electroplating. Some suggest that the battery was used to electroplate gold or silver onto other metals. A few ancient artifacts have been found with a thin layer of precious metal that seems too uniform to have been applied manually. Could this technique have involved electricity, medical, or religious purposes? It's been hypothesized that the battery might have been used in healing rituals, possibly to deliver mild electric shocks as a form of therapy. Alternatively, the slight tingling sensation caused by contact with electric current may have been interpreted as divine in religious ceremonies, just a storage jar. The most conservative theory posits that the Baghdad battery is not a battery at all, but simply a container perhaps for scrolls, sacred relics, or scrolls. The copper and iron may have been coincidental, not functional. Still, none of these explanations is entirely satisfying. No documentation has been found detailing how to use the object, and no definitive traces of electroplating techniques have been directly linked to this battery. The Baghdad battery sits at the intersection of archaeology and speculation. Mainstream archaeologists urge caution, emphasizing the lack of contextual evidence. There is no clear written record describing how the device was used, or even acknowledging that electricity was known to these cultures. On the other hand, experimental archaeologists and alternative historians argue that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. They see the Baghdad battery as a relic from a forgotten chapter of technological ingenuity. They point to how many ancient tech structures and artifacts suggest knowledge that seems out of place for their time. For instance, could the ancient Egyptians have powered some kind of light source inside the deep tunnels of the pyramids? Could other out-of-place artifacts like the Antikythera mechanism, an ancient analog computer, and the dendrolite, a curious relief showing what looks like a giant light bulb, be clues to a broader, more advanced understanding? To many, the Baghdad battery has transcended its status as a single object and become a symbol of ancient ingenuity or perhaps forgotten science. Its story has been featured in documentaries, TV shows like Ancient Aliens, and countless YouTube theories. While some of these portrayals are exaggerated or speculative, they reflect a growing public fascination with the idea that history may not be as linear as we once believed. Could civilizations rise, develop technology, and then fall, leaving behind fragments that baffle future generations? If the Baghdad battery truly was used as a source of electricity, then our understanding of technological progress needs a serious update. Skeptics argue that even if the Baghdad battery can produce electricity, it doesn't mean it was meant to. Just because a combination of materials creates a reaction doesn't mean ancient people were aware of it or used it intentionally. But others counter that the specificity of the design, a central iron rod encased in copper insulated with bitumen, suggests deliberate planning. It's not a random arrangement. It's not likely the result of happenstance. This line of thinking leads to a compelling thought experiment. If you buried a modern AA battery in the ground and someone uncovered it 2,000 years later without context, would they immediately understand its purpose? Probably not. Whether or not the Baghdad battery was used for electricity, it challenges us to look at ancient cultures through a different lens. These were not primitive societies groping blindly in the dark. They were intelligent, observant, experimental, and perhaps more technologically sophisticated than we give them credit for. The artifact encourages us to ask bolder questions. What other discoveries have been forgotten, buried, or dismissed? What do we lose when we assume that the past was simple? In museums, the Baghdad battery sits quietly behind glass. Its function officially listed as unknown. But in the minds of those who dare to imagine, it's alive with possibility. A relic from a forgotten experiment, a device centuries ahead of its time. Or perhaps just a misinterpreted curiosity. We may never know for sure, but the intrigue it sparks continues to inspire scientists, inventors, and dreamers around the world. What do you think? Was the Baghdad battery a true leap into the electrical age thousands of years ahead of schedule? Or are we simply seeing what we want to see in an ancient jar? Let us know your thoughts below. Do you believe ancient civilizations understood electricity? Or is this just a strange accident of history? Deep in the heart of the Pacific on a remote volcanic island carved by wind. And time lies a secret no one has cracked. Among the towering stone statues of Easter Island, silent sentinels of a forgotten past, rest weathered wooden tablets covered in mysterious glyphs. This is Rangarongo, a script so alien, so unique that it may represent one of the few writing systems in human history born entirely in isolation. For over 150 years, it has resisted every attempt at decipherment. No Rosetta Stone, no translations, just rows of cryptic symbols whispering stories we may never understand. What power did these signs once hold? Who could read them? And why was the knowledge lost? Rangoro isn't just a linguistic puzzle. It's a doorway into a vanished world, and it may be the last great script still holding its secrets. The mystery of Ranger Rangongo begins with its setting. Easter Island lies in the southeastern Pacific Ocean, over 2,000 miles from the nearest continental landmass. Despite its isolation, the Rapanui civilization developed impressive megalithic architecture, famously represented by the giant Moai statues. But alongside these stone colossi, archaeologists discovered something far more fragile, yet possibly more significant. Wooden tablets inscribed with flowing curvilinear symbols, glyphs that twist and turn in complex sequences unlike any known writing system elsewhere in Polynesia. These inscriptions, collectively known as the Rangarongo script, were first brought to the attention of the outside world in the 19th century by missionaries and colonial administrators. They sparked instant curiosity, but that curiosity has yet to yield comprehension. One of the script's most striking features is its unique reverse baston style. This method requires the reader to read one line from left to right, then rotate the tablet 180 degrees to read the next line, continuing this rotation for each subsequent line. This alternating orientation is exceedingly rare in world writing systems and has only added to the difficulty of interpretation. Even the direction in which the script was meant to be read is debated, as many of the surviving artifacts are damaged or incomplete. But what has truly baffled researchers for generations is that no one has been able to definitively decipher Rangarongo. Despite numerous efforts, the meanings of the glyphs remain elusive. Unlike the Rosetta Stone, which provided a bilingual text and helped unlock the secrets of Egyptian hieroglyphs, no parallel text exists to guide us through Rangarongo. There is no Easter Island Rosetta Stone to provide linguistic footholds. The Rapanui language, although still spoken, has undergone centuries of change, further distancing modern researchers from the linguistic context in which Rangarango was created. The known corpus of Rangarango is small. Only about 24 tablets survive, scattered among museums in Europe, Chile, and the United States. Each tablet is fragile. Many are scorched or worn, and some are even carved on driftwood or repurposed planks. The glyphs themselves, over 600 distinct signs, resemble stylized representations of people, animals, plants, and geometric shapes. Some scholars have proposed that these symbols may have been mnemonic rather than fully phonetic or semantic, perhaps used to aid in the oral transmission of religious chants or genealogical records. Others argue that Rangarongo may be a true writing system capable of recording complex information and ideas. Adding to the enigma is the historical context. When missionaries arrived in the 19th century, they were told that the islanders no longer knew how to read the tablets. Oral traditions claimed that reading Rongo was once a sacred skill possessed only by high-ranking priests or elite scribes. But with colonization came cultural upheaval, the suppression of native beliefs, the burning of religious artifacts, and the spread of diseases that devastated the population. It's entirely possible that the last keepers of Rangarongo literacy died without passing on their knowledge, effectively sealing the script's secrets forever. Numerous attempts have been made to analyze the script statistically. Some researchers, such as Thomas Barthel in the 1950s, cataloged and numbered hundreds of glyphs, identifying recurring patterns and potential grammatical structures. More recently, computer algorithms and AI models have been employed in hopes of finding hidden structures or correlations. Some progress has been made. Suggestions of repeated formulas, possible personal names, or ritualistic phrases, but no translation has gained scholarly consensus. The problem remains compounded by the script's small corpus size, lack of context, and potential mixing of symbolic and phonetic elements. The lack of consensus has spawned a wide range of interpretations. Some claim the script is not a language at all, but a proto-writing or symbolic art. Others insist it is a sophisticated syllabic system. A few fringe theories even suggest external origins connecting Rangarango to Oldu world scripts, ancient South American cultures, or alien intervention. These ideas, while often sensationalized, reflect a deeper frustration that such an intricate and seemingly purposeful system of communication could resist all efforts at understanding. If deciphered, Rangarongo could completely reshape our view of Polynesian history. It could provide unprecedented insights into Rapa Nui's political systems, religious beliefs, social structures, and cultural practices prior to European contact. It might also show that the people of Easter Island developed writing independently, a feat extremely rare in human history, only accomplished by a handful of civilizations such as the Sumerians, Chinese, and Mayans. That possibility alone gives the script immense historical significance, placing it in a global narrative of human intellectual achievement. Ironically, the very existence of Rangarongo challenges long-held assumptions about non-literate societies in the Pacific. For centuries, scholars believed that Polynesian cultures relied solely on oral traditions. But Rangau, if proven to be a full writing system, would disrupt that narrative, demonstrating a higher level of abstraction and record-keeping than previously thought. Its undeciphered nature is both a barrier and a beacon, a reminder of what has been lost and what might still be found. In recent years, there has been growing interest in revisiting Rangarongo using modern tools, machine learning pattern recognition, and comparative linguistics. Yet, the success of such endeavors depends on collaboration between linguists, cultural historians, and the Rapa Nui community. Ethical considerations must also guide this process. After all, Rangarango is more than just a puzzle. It is a piece of living heritage, a remnant of a worldview erased by colonization and modernity. For now, The wooden tablets remain silent rows of mysterious glyphs carved by hands long gone, telling stories no one alive can read. But their silence is not absence. It is a challenge, a whisper from the past, daring us to listen harder, think deeper, and approach knowledge not just as something to possess, but something to preserve and understand. What do you think Rangarongo was really used for? Was a sacred script reserved for priest kings and forgotten rituals, a record of history now lost to time? Or could it be something we haven't even imagined yet? Let us know in the comments what's your theory behind this ancient code. No one can read. Hidden in the serene English countryside nestled within the historic grounds of Shugborough Hall lies a riddle carved, not in whispers, but in stone. At first glance, it's nothing grand. No golden tombs, no towering monuments. Just a row of 10 cryptic letters. DOUSVAVVM etched between the silent flanks of 2 stone pillars. And yet this unassuming string of characters has confounded scholars, spies, code-reekers, and cryptologists for over 250 years. Not a single soul, from amateur sleuths to the brightest minds in British intelligence, has been able to crack its meaning. This isn't just a forgotten relic. It's a direct challenge across centuries. A stone that dares us to understand it. The stone that bears the cryptic inscription is part of an elaborate relief sculpture modeled after the shepherds of Arcadia, a 17th century painting by French artist Nicolas Busson. In the Chagaro adaptation, 3 shepherds and a woman gather around a tomb that bears the Latin phrase an Arcadia ego, often translated as, "Even in Arcadia, I am present." This phrase has long been interpreted as a poetic reminder of mortality, that even in paradise, death casts its shadow. The combination of classical imagery and a cryptic inscription beneath it suggests a deliberate layering of symbolism, one that invites not only admiration but decoding. Directly beneath the Arcadian relief at Shugborough Hall lies the true heart of the mystery. A short line of 10 capital letters DOUSVAVVM carved in stone without any punctuation spaces or context. The inscription appears deceptively simple, yet for more than 2½ centuries, it has resisted all efforts at interpretation. There are no surviving documents explaining its purpose, no signature from its creator, and no historical clue as to what inspired it. Why would someone place such a cryptic message beneath a scene meditating on death and the transience of life? The placement feels deliberate, as though it holds a hidden truth awaiting discovery. Over the years, a diverse range of individuals have attempted to decode it, from curious tourists and armchair historians to some of Britain's most sophisticated intelligence minds at MI5 and GCHQ. Despite their expertise in cryptography and pattern recognition, no one has presented a solution accepted by scholars or historians. The more deeply researchers dive into its mystery, the more elusive the answer becomes, turning this string of 10 letters into a labyrinth of human meaning, a puzzle that continues to challenge reason and imagination alike. Since the 18th century, the Shugborough inscription has inspired a vast array of interpretations from scholarly to sensational. Some theorists believe the 10 letters are abbreviations for a Latin religious invocation, possibly a memento mori or a spiritual reflection on death. Others insist the code was crafted by the Knights Templar, suggesting it contains clues to the location of the Holy Grail, hidden knowledge, or sacred relics. More radical ideas propose that the message originates from a lost civilization or even extraterrestrial intelligence, hinting at communication far beyond the human timeline. Each new theory seems to pull the mystery into a different intellectual or mystical domain, layering meaning upon meaning, and yet none have been conclusively proven. The absence of historical records or any corroborating evidence keeps all explanations in the realm of speculation, turning the inscription into a mirror for the minds that try to solve it. In 1982, the publication of the controversial bestseller, The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail, brought the Shugborough inscription to global attention. The authors Begent, Lee, and Lincoln proposed that the mysterious sequence of letters was more than a historical curiosity. It was a deliberate code pointing toward the true whereabouts of the Holy Grail. However, their interpretation redefined the Grail not as a chalice, but as a symbol of divine bloodlines or suppressed spiritual knowledge passed down through secret societies. Though historians and theologians heavily criticized the book for its speculative leaps and lack of evidence, the theory struck a cultural nerve. The Shugborough stone suddenly became more than an artifact. It became a catalyst for conspiracy, embedding itself into a broader mythos of hidden truths, ancient wisdom, and forbidden history. Among the many attempts to decode the Shugborough inscription, one of the most frequently cited theories is that the letters are an acronym for a full Latin sentence with deep spiritual meaning. A proposed reconstruction reads De omnipotentis umbra omnia vanitas aeternum vanitas vanitatum memento mori, which translates to under the shadow of Almighty God. All things are vanity. Vanity of vanities, remember death. This interpretation fits neatly with the somber tone of the Arcadian tomb scene and reflects Enlightenment-era reflections on mortality and the fleeting nature of life. However, like many other hypotheses, it lacks historical documentation or physical evidence, leaving it in the realm of educated speculation rather than verified fact. One of the most enduring mysteries surrounding the Shugborough inscription is the question of authorship. No official records from the estate indicate who designed or carved the enigmatic code. Some historians point to Thomas Anson, the 18th century owner of Shugborough, known for his fascination with classical philosophy symbolism and rumored ties to secret societies like the Freemasons. His intellectual background and artistic interests suggest he may have commissioned the code as a philosophical or esoteric statement. Others argue it could have been the work of an anonymous stonemason, perhaps someone initiated into hidden knowledge who saw the monument as a final opportunity to encode a personal or spiritual message into stone, a silent legacy meant to outlast time itself. What makes the Shugborough inscription truly extraordinary is its defiance of progress. In an age where artificial intelligence deciphers lost languages, quantum computing solves near impossible problems, and satellites scan every inch of the Earth, this 10-letter code, carved in the 18th century, remains untouched by certainty. It serves as a powerful reminder of the boundaries of human comprehension where science, faith, and symbolism converge and yet fail to provide clarity. That is why it continues to captivate not just as a historical curiosity, but as a timeless enigma that challenges our belief in how much we truly know. That inscription carved into an unassuming stone in the English countryside still stands unmoved by time and untouched by definitive meaning. It evokes the same awe humanity once felt when first gazing at the stars, a mix of wonder and endless questioning. Perhaps its value lies not in the solution, but in the journey of seeking a pursuit with no end, and perhaps no need for one. What do you think the Shugborough inscription means? Could it be a forgotten prayer, a secret left by the Knights Templar, or something far more personal? Perhaps a message meant for just one person now, long gone. With over 250 years of mystery and no clear answer, maybe it's time for a fresh perspective. Share your theory in the comments, no matter how wild or logical, and let's see what modern minds can uncover from this ancient code. In the heart of Australia's untamed wilderness, far from any desert pyramid or pharaoh's tomb, lies a weathered rock face that defies logic, history, and borders. Deep within the forests of Carryong, New South Wales, a series of strange carvings silently wait to be understood. At first, they seem like nothing more than crude scratches lost to time. But as sunlight grazes the sandstone, a shocking truth begins to surface. These symbols look nearly identical to ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Not inspired by them, not vaguely similar, identical. How could a writing system born along the Nile appear on a secluded cliffside halfway across the globe? And who carved them thousands of years ago or in recent decades as part of an elaborate deception. The Gosford glyphs are more than an archaeological oddity. They are a direct challenge to everything we thought we knew about history, human migration, and the reach of ancient civilizations. What makes the Gosford glyphs one of the most controversial archaeological mysteries in the world is their striking and uncanny resemblance to the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphic system, a highly complex and symbolic writing form closely associated with religious rituals, royal authority, and ancient mythology. The carvings found on the rocks at Karong don't just resemble these forms superficially. They accurately depict specific and sacred symbols, such as the Eye of Horus symbol of protection and awareness, a coiled serpent representing royal power, the Ankh cross symbolizing eternal life, and the scarab beetle linked to rebirth and the sun, all of which held deep significance in Egyptian culture thousands of years before the Common Era. What astonishes researchers even more than the visual resemblance is the arrangement and syntactic structure of the symbol clusters. Some carvings clearly follow the grammatical rules used in written Egyptian, especially the style typical of the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, famed for building the Great Pyramid of Giza around 2600 BCE. The way the symbols are grouped, the direction of inscription, the repetition patterns, and even the spacing between sets of glyphs all suggest a sophisticated understanding of how true hieroglyphic writing worked, something that even modern individuals would struggle to replicate without extensive study. This leads to a fundamental and unsettling question for both mainstream scholars and alternative researchers alike. Who carved these symbols, and how could they have achieved such near-perfect accuracy in the middle of the Australian wilderness? If it is a hoax, then the perpetrator must have possessed remarkable knowledge of Egyptology, linguistics, and stone carving skills rarely combined in any one individual, let alone in an amateur during the 20th century. But if it's real, then the Gosford glyphs may not just be a historical anomaly, but a key to unlocking an entirely new chapter in the story of ancient intercontinental contact between civilizations. The uncanny resemblance between the glyphs at Karong and ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs has sparked a wave of alternative theories. Most notably, the idea that ancient Egyptians may have set foot in Australia thousands of years ago. According to some hypotheses, a group of Egyptian priests, nobles, or sailors may have been shipwrecked during an unrecorded expedition, leaving behind the carvings now known as the Gosford glyphs. The story becomes even more sensational with claims that the area was once an ancient energy hub where civilizations could connect through time corridors or deep spatial portals. Although no mainstream archaeological evidence supports these ideas, they continue to captivate a wide audience, ranging from independent researchers and mystics to those who believe that many chapters of human history remain unwritten. For these believers, the Gosford glyphs are not merely an archaeological curiosity, but rather a missing piece of a forgotten global past. Since their public revelation in the 1970s, the Gosford glyphs have become the center of intense controversy between mainstream archaeologists and alternative researchers. Professional archaeologists argue that the carvings show no signs of weathering consistent with artifacts that are thousands of years old. On the contrary, some of the glyphs appear to have been made with modern metal tools, exhibiting sharp lines and surfaces that look far too new for truly ancient relics. Furthermore, many linguists have noted that the clusters of symbols include characters from various different periods in Egyptian history and even contain basic grammatical errors. Based on this, the prevailing theory in academic circles is that these glyphs were likely created by enthusiasts of ancient Egypt, carved in the 20th century, either as an artistic experiment, a historical homage, or simply as part of an elaborate mystery or hoax. Yet, the debate continues as many of the glyphs display a level of detail and consistency that seems too precise to dismiss as random or amateur work. Despite being dismissed by mainstream archaeologists, supporters of the Gosford glyphs' authenticity continue to offer compelling counterarguments. They ask, Could an ordinary person in the 20th century really carve hundreds of complex symbols in authentic ancient Egyptian style without expert knowledge or scholarly resources? Moreover, why would someone choose a remote, hard-to-reach forest location instead of a public space if it were merely a prank? They also point to many intricate and consistent details, from the depth of the carvings and the layout of the symbols to the relatively accurate grammar that make the modern forgery theory seem unconvincing. To them, these glyphs may be genuine remnants of a forgotten chapter in human history. Hidden deep within the wild forests of Carryong, the site of the Gosford glyphs is not only intriguing for its resemblance to ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, but also holds profound spiritual meaning for the local Aboriginal communities. According to long-standing spiritual traditions, this place is seen as a sacred point of connection between humans, their ancestors, the Earth Mother, and supernatural beings. Supporters of ancient contact theories believe that because of this sacredness, the glyphs could represent remnants of an ancient encounter between the indigenous people and visitors from afar, possibly from ancient Egypt. Others suggest that the carvings are stories preserved through collective memory and etched in stone, serving as evidence of cultural exchanges never recorded in modern history. From the perspective of indigenous culture, these carvings are not merely an archaeological mystery, but a sacred part of the land's spiritual identity and ancestral legacy. Regardless of which theory holds truth, the Gosford glyphs remain a fascinating and divisive mystery. Mainstream archaeology may label them as fakes, but that hasn't stopped millions from asking deeper questions about the history we think we know. The striking similarity between the Carryong symbols and genuine ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs remains a detail too significant to ignore. Could this be proof of a forgotten chapter in human history, or the masterwork of a dreamer lost to time? The answer still lies hidden deep in the Australian bush, waiting to be uncovered. Imagine stumbling into the Karong forest and coming face to face with symbols meticulously carved into stone symbols that look exactly like ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. What would you think? Is this an elaborate 20th century hoax? Or could it be evidence of an ancient contact never recorded in history books? Does the story of the Gosford glyphs make you question what we've always accepted as official history? Do you believe this is a hidden truth, long buried, or just a modern legend? Share your thoughts in the comments. Every perspective might unlock another piece of this mystery. Deep within a remote cave in Mexico, what seemed at first to be the remains of an unknown child shook the foundations of archaeology for nearly a century. It wasn't just any skull. It was the Star Child skull, a bizarre bone structure with features that match known human species. An abnormally large brain cavity, shallow and wide eye sockets reminiscent of something extraterrestrial, and bones so thin yet strong it resembles synthetic material. All of it left experts baffled. But what truly makes this one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of mankind isn't just its strange appearance. It's the unsettling truth. No one has ever been able to determine this being's exact age or even its gender. The biological markers contradict each other. The skeletal structure doesn't fit any human model, and its DNA raises more questions than it answers. Is this simply a case of rare genetic deformity, or the trace of a being never before recorded in human history? And if so, where did it come from? In the early 1930s, a young Mexican-American girl exploring a cave system near Chihuahua, Mexico, accidentally discovered two skeletons lying side by side, one belonging to an adult, the other to a child. But what shocked her was that the child's skull had an unmistakably strange shape. An abnormally enlarged cranium, wide and shallow eye sockets slanted at an odd angle, cranial bones as thin as paper, yet mysteriously rigid, and most notably a complete lack of frontal sinuses. Believing it to be a remarkable artifact, she brought the skull back to the United States and kept it for the rest of her life. It wasn't until decades later, after the skull was passed on to independent researchers, that it began to attract global attention, sparking widespread fascination under the mysterious name the Star Child skull. At first glance, the Star Child skull might be mistaken for that of a child with a congenital deformity. However, as anatomists and anthropologists began to examine it more closely, they quickly realized that its structure did not resemble any human skull ever recorded and could not be fully explained by existing medical knowledge. To begin with, its cranial capacity reached approximately 1,600 centimeters, significantly larger than the average adult human for 100 cmi, even though other features suggested it belonged to a child. Furthermore, the skull bones were not only thin and lightweight, but they also exhibited a fibrous microstructure never seen in any known human specimen. In tests, researchers found that it required 3 times the normal force to cut through this bone compared to ordinary human skulls. The eye sockets were also peculiar, wide, shallow, and slanted, deviating from any known anatomical standard of Homo sapiens. Lastly, the skull completely lacked frontal sinuses, a rare but still possible trait in humans. Yet, when all of these anomalies coexist in a single specimen, it transcends the explanation of mere deformity, becoming a biological enigma that cannot be easily dismissed. Faced with the bizarre features of the Star Child skull, many scientists have attempted to offer conventional medical explanations. They suggested that it could be the skull of a child suffering from severe congenital disorders such as Crohn's syndrome hydrophilus or a combination of rare cranial deformities. However, proponents of alternative theories quickly pushed back. How could all these abnormalities occur simultaneously in a single individual? And why was its bone structure so radically different both physically and chemically from any known human specimen? In search of answers, an independent research effort called the Star Child Project conducted multiple DNA analyses on the skull. The results revealed that the mitochondrial DNA inherited from the mother was human, but the nuclear DNA, which contains the core genetic information that determines species identity, was faint, fragmented, or even unidentifiable. This ambiguity sparked a bold hypothesis that the skull might belong to a hybrid, being part human, part an entirely unknown species, possibly even extraterrestrial. Among all the mysteries surrounding the Star Child skull, the inability to determine the being's exact age and gender is perhaps the most confounding issue for scientists. With typical human remains, anthropologists can estimate age and sex with relative accuracy using indicators such as tooth development, deciduous or permanent, the maturity of cranial and jaw bones, the shape of suture joints, bone, mineral density, and characteristic morphological traits associated with gender. However, in this case, all of those indicators contradict each other in dramatic ways. The presence of baby teeth suggests the individual was only about 5 to 6 years old, and there are no signs of permanent teeth developing, which would normally occur at that age. This supports the theory that it was a child. Yet, when examining the skull bones, researchers observed features typically found in adults. Sutures had narrowed the bone. Tissue was dense, the structure was solid, and mineralization levels were high, all signs of a much older age. Radiometric dating to estimate biological age also yielded results that didn't match the age inferred from dental evidence. Even more perplexing, the morphological traits of the skull do not conform to any known pattern associated with male or female humans, rendering gender determination virtually impossible. After numerous attempts, scientists had to admit that using all available tools, from classical anthropological methods to advanced analytical technologies, we still cannot determine this being's true age or gender. This isn't just a technical challenge. It may be a sign that this being does not fully belong to the biological framework of humanity as we understand it. Since the late 1990s, many mainstream scientists have refused to continue researching this specimen, dismissing it as unscientific. Yet, the mystery-loving public became more captivated than ever. Amid DNA sampling, physical analysis, and claims of alien origin, the Star Child skull gradually became a symbol of a mystery abandoned by science. Some independent scientists have proposed reanalyzing it with next-generation genomic tools, but high costs and legal ownership barriers have stalled progress. From a scientific standpoint, the Star Child skull is a dilemma too different to conclude using traditional methods, yet too unbelievable to openly explore radical hypotheses. From a paranormal perspective, it's living evidence of something beyond imagination, a suggestion that we may not have been the only intelligent species to walk this earth. In a world where every strand of DNA tells a story, the Star Child remains silent. And perhaps the biggest question isn't where did it come from, but rather are we ready to accept the answer if it breaks every scientific boundary we've ever known? What do you think is the Star Child skull? Simply a rare medical anomaly or evidence of something far beyond our current understanding? Do you believe that humans may have once coexisted with other unknown beings, even if only for a fleeting moment in evolutionary history? Share your thoughts, because sometimes a new perspective might bring us one step closer to the truth. Deep beneath the sun-shed cliffs of Egypt's Valley of the Kings, where pharaohs sought eternal glory in golden tombs, one burial breaks all the rules. No name, no coffin, no dignity, just a body wrapped in animal skin mouth, frozen in a silent scream as if death had come in agony and shame. For over a century, this disturbing figure labeled only as unknown man, he has haunted archaeologists. Why was he buried among kings, yet denied the rituals of one? And more chillingly, what did he do to deserve it? In 1886, while exploring the hidden tomb known as DB 320 in Egypt's Valley of the Kings, archaeologists made a chilling discovery, one that stood in stark contrast to the carefully embalmed and honorably buried pharaohs around it. Amid gilded sarcophagi and meticulously wrapped royals lay a body that broke every tradition. No name inscribed, no protective coffin, no rare amulets, and most disturbingly wrapped in sheepskin, a material deemed ritually impure in ancient Egyptian religion. This was not a royal burial. It was a statement of disgrace. Even more haunting was the mummy's posture. His mouth agape in what seemed to be an eternal scream, his limbs contorted as if death had come violently or in horror. Whoever this man was, he had been denied peace. Stripped of dignity and identity, he was known only by a sterile title, Unknown Man. In stark contrast to the traditional 70-day embalming process reserved for nobles and royalty, Unknown Man, he was never disemboweled nor treated with fragrant resins or the standard preservation techniques of ancient Egypt. His body was crudely and disrespectfully preserved as if his death had come suddenly or worse. Deliberately mishandled. Yet strangely, the corpse remained remarkably intact, prompting scientists to question, was this a case of poisoning strangulation or some other unnatural cause of death? Combined with his pained facial expression, gaping mouth, and contorted posture, many experts believe this was not a natural death, but a severe punishment, both physical and spiritual. For decades, the true identity of Unknown Man remained pure speculation until modern science offered a critical breakthrough. In 2012, under the direction of renowned Egyptologist Dr. Zihawas, a research team conducted DNA testing on several royal mummies, including Pharaoh Ramses III, the last truly powerful ruler of Egypt's new kingdom. At the same time, the team revisited a chilling ancient document, the Judicial Papyrus of Trin, which recorded a detailed account of a palace conspiracy in ancient Egypt, one that could hold the key to the mystery of the screaming mummy. According to the papyrus, Queen Tyr, a secondary wife of Ramses III, orchestrated an elaborate assassination plot to overthrow the king and place her son, Prince Pentau, on the throne. The conspiracy involved multiple royal insiders and trusted officials, but the plan was discovered and crushed. Ramses III was ultimately found to have had his throat cut, a detail confirmed centuries later through CT scans of his mummy. Most conspirators were publicly tried and punished according to the law. As for Pentau, the record states he was forced to take his own life, a phrase loaded with ambiguity, but clearly pointing to a harsh and deeply disgraceful sentence. After that, his name vanished from official records. No tombe, no inscription, no trace. It's within this historical void that unknown man emerged like a ghost. When his DNA was analyzed, Hawas's team discovered a direct genetic link. He was the son of Ramses III. This meant that among the countless possibilities buried in the Valley of the Kings, Peniwa stood out as the most plausible match. But his identity wasn't confirmed by genetics alone. It was written into how he had been buried. His mummy was wrapped in sheepskin, a material considered ritually impure, symbolizing defilement and shame in Egyptian burial customs. The absence of a name, the lack of burial goods, and the complete disregard for proper embalming rites all pointed to a deliberate act to erase him from history and deny his soul passage into the afterlife. In ancient Egyptian belief, this was worse than death itself. A person who died without a name or proper rites could never enter the afterlife realm, where souls are judged and reborn. Instead, they would be eternally trapped between worlds, doomed to wander without rest. If unknown man, he was indeed Peniwa, his punishment was not just physical death, but spiritual annihilation, a sentence designed to echo through eternity. His identity and the way he was treated in death reveals not just a dramatic court conspiracy, but also how power in ancient Egypt used death itself as a tool to erase memory, honor, and even the soul. This is why the question who is unknown man, he continues to resonate, not just because science hasn't reached a final verdict, but because he stands as a vivid symbol of political tragedy and the devastating price of betrayal in a culture obsessed with death and the afterlife. While the theory identifying unknown man, as Prince Pen Tower, has gained significant traction, some scholars remain unconvinced. They argue that the mummy's contorted expression, mouth wide open in what appears to be a scream, could result from natural post-mortem processes such as jaw relaxation after death, rather than evidence of violent trauma or punishment. Additionally, the fact that he was buried in DB 320 alongside revered pharaohs and queens has led some to suggest that his treatment was not entirely disgraceful. It may indicate that sympathetic priests defied official condemnation, choosing instead to bury him near his royal lineage in an act of quiet mercy, even if they withheld his name to avoid political scandal. Unknown man, he is not merely an unidentified mummy. He has become a living symbol of royal tragedy in ancient Egypt. If he was indeed Prince Penaware, his story vividly reflects the brutality of power, where a son could betray his own father for the throne only to be cursed after death. He represents a society in which betrayal was punished not just by execution, but by erasure from memory and from the afterlife itself, a sentence that condemned the soul to eternal unrest. Today, the screaming face of this mummy continues to appear in museums, documentaries, and facial reconstructions. Scientists still study him. Novelists write tales of forbidden love, political betrayal, and cursed destinies, but no one has offered a final answer. And perhaps that's why this story continues to endure in a culture devoted to immortality and spiritual order. Unknown man, he is a painful paradox. A man erased from memory and punished in death, yet who has become an eternal symbol of unresolved mystery. His face, twisted in silent agony, still screams across time, reminding us that some souls are never at rest. The story of unknown man, he accursed mummy, possibly a rebellious prince, or merely a victim of ruthless power, remains unresolved to this day. If it were up to you, would he deserve forgiveness and the right to be called by his true name? Or should he forever remain in silence, a warning carved in flesh? Share your thoughts below. Was he truly Peniwa? And does his soul deserve to rest at last?